everybody, and welcome back to another Minecraft Bedrock tutorial.
Yay!
Today we have something slightly different because last week we received a challenge. No, not that sort of challenge. No, we received a redstone challenge from an epic YouTuber named RogueFox. Now, if you don't know who RogueFox is, being genuine though, RogueFox is a fantastic Minecraft Bedrock YouTuber. He has a survival series. He does loads of redstone stuff. He does tutorials. He's just a really nice guy. So if you haven't checked him out, what are you doing? Go to the description and go check out his channel. Go now, leave. Go subscribe. But then please come back. I need the views. Please. Now, if you've watched this video already, you know that he's challenged me to compact a redstone build, specifically a piston staircase.
That's right. I challenged the Bowtie Man to make this build more compact. And again, this is 3+ years old. And I offered him the challenge of making this smaller.
Now, before we look at what I've come up with, RogueFox has kindly sent me his original build. So let's have a look. So this is the build that RogueFox sent me to compact. And firstly, as you can see with this build, it's fairly compact already. I mean, I can compact it a little bit, but yeah, it's a fairly compact build already. And another thing, it's super cheap. Just look at this. It's only using a few repeaters, some dust, and just one observer. Just one observer. How? What I'm just trying to say is, Rogue, this is a fantastic survival-friendly build. It's honestly not that big, and it's super cheap. And another thing, it's nice and quick. As we can flick the lever here, we have our staircase, very nice and quickly, and then flick the lever again. It all gets retracted down beautifully. Very, very nice. A great little build, so well done, Rogue. Now, my main objective given by RogueFox was to compact this build as much as possible. But the second thing I wanted to do was actually to remove this wall. I wanted to get this build nice and flat with the floor. Of course, we have a wall here. That's going to be a natural wall because, of course, we want to go up somewhere. So it'd be a bit silly if I remove that wall. But if I could, I wanted to remove this one as well. So the question is, did I do it? Well, as I'm saying this, I think you can kind of gather that I did. Yep. Oh yeah, this build is super expensive. To be fair, he wanted it compact, and I couldn't make it this compact without using obsidian and lots of observers. I'm sorry. Only 3 wide, 5 deep, and only 4 high. It's absolutely tiny. And another thing, I haven't compromised on the speed at all. Flick the lever, extends really quickly, and then flick the lever again, and it retracts really quickly too. Now, for those of you wondering if this is the smallest possible design, I literally have no idea. Also, some of you may be wondering why I put the lever down here. That's basically just because of compactness, but don't worry, I will show you how to move the lever later to here. I think having these two builds side by side is a really good indication of basically what you lose when you go small, but also what you gain by going small. Of course, the smaller the build, it's going to fit in a smaller area, but as you can see, it's a lot more expensive. So sometimes it's better to go large, sometimes it's better to go small. So yeah, RogueFox, this is what I've come up with. I hope this is what you had in mind when you gave me this challenge. I hope. That's basically the build. So thank you so much. No, I'm kidding. Of course, I wouldn't go without doing a tutorial. So let's get on with this tutorial. So for this amazing build, you're going to need 5 pistons, 7 sticky pistons, 6 reserves, 3 repeaters, 7 redstone torches, 3 resin dust, 2 immovable blocks, 9 obsidian, 1 lever, 9 blocks to the ground, and high blocks you need for decoration. Immovable blocks? What was that? Try saying immovable fast. It's tricky. Okay, to start this build, what we need to do is firstly, like usual, we need to determine where we want our build to actually be. So what I've done here is I've laid out a 3x3 square like this. This is obviously our floor level, and we placed in our wall here. So this block here will go up once. This block here will come up 2 blocks like that, and this block here will come up 3 like so. So that is where our staircase is going to go, exactly like that one over there. Okay. So after you have that all marked out, what you need to do is grab your shovels because we need to do some digging. So what I want you to do is to dig out the 3 blocks in front, like that. A line of blocks to the left, up to here, and the same on this side. Up to the wall, and then behind the wall come out 2. 1, 2, and then just clear out the rectangle like so, and clear out the blocks underneath our wall, like that. So we should have a 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rectangle. Perfect. But of course, this is only 1 deep. You're not going to fit much redstone into this. We need this hole to be 6 deep. So you've got to dig this out 5 more times. And of course, we're digging far more than we need to just to give ourselves a bit of breathing room around the redstone. So what we should have is a 5 by 7 by 6 deep hole. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. So what we're going to do now is we're going to place in our pistons. So our single, our double, and our triple piston extender. So firstly, let's do the single. So come to the front here. The first of our 3 blocks like this. Come down 2. Remove the first block and have a sticky piston facing upward like that. So that's our single piston extender. Then place a block underneath. Go toward the back. Have a sticky piston here. And then one above going toward this block. So you might want to come up here, remove this block, place in our sticky piston, and then replace the block. It's just a little bit easier. So that's our double, as you can see. And then do the same here. So block underneath, and now you probably guessed it, we want a triple here. So 1, 2, 3 up like that. So these are going to fire like this: a single, a double, and a triple. Okay, so now we can get on with some proper redstone. So what we're going to do first is we're going to work on the extension of our triple piston extender down here. So what I want you to do is to place a block here and a torch at the back, which should turn on. Then a block on top of that torch, and a torch toward the pistons here, which should turn off. A block on top of that torch, torch at the back, and then we want to grab a piston and place it like this. I know that's strange, but just do it, okay? So going toward the left if we're looking toward the back. And then finally, place a torch here. So that should be our extension all done, because if I place the lever here and flicked it on, this block would get powered, which obviously would extend this piston, moving this piston up to here. At the same time, this torch would turn off, unpowering this block, allowing this torch to turn on, which would power this block, which would then extend this piston, which is then moved to here. That piston would be moved up to here at this point. Then this torch would turn off, unpowering this piston, which would allow this torch to turn on, powering this block, which would obviously extend our final piston. Like this. Beautiful. Now, we have an obsidian here because we need to place one in front of that piston. Don't worry about it now, just do it. But as you can see, of course, when I flip this lever, we definitely do not have the full retraction. Okay, for our next bit, what we're going to do, just to make it easier for ourselves, we're going to remove these 3 blocks here, just so we can see what's going on, all right? So like we said, we have the full extension on the 3 pistons here, but we definitely don't have any of the retraction. So the first retraction we need to do is this piston here. So we need to extend this piston, grabbing this piston, and moving it down. So what we need to do is place a piston off this block like that, and then we need to place an observer going toward this piston. So if you come here and place it like this, that should work. So the arrow going toward that piston, the face facing outward, okay? So as these retract and this block unpowers, this piston moves this observer over. When it goes over, it fires, and it fires into this piston, extending and retracting, like that. You can see it's just in time. Now, the next piston we have to extend is this one down here. We have to extend it, grabbing this piston and moving it down. Now, we do that by placing the observer off the side of this torch, like that, so the dot going toward the ground and the face facing upward. Grab a repeater and have it coming away from this block on 2 tick delay. So place it down and press it 2 times. Once, twice. Then what we need to do is grab another observer, place it here, and a block here. So after that block gets powered, 3 ticks later, this repeater turns on. This observer detects that, fires. This observer detects that one firing and fires into this block, which obviously will extend this piston, retracting it. So you can see with this build, it's actually not too complicated. All it is order. So we've done this piston up here, then we've done this piston. Now we need to do this piston up here. So we do that by coming over to the repeater we placed earlier. Crouch, make sure you crouch, and place an observer upward like that. So the face is staring at that repeater. Poor repeater. And that's why we have this obsidian here, because as that repeater turns back on, this observer detects that, firing into this obsidian, and then we can take a repeater output like that on 2-tick delay. So have the repeater coming away from that obsidian on 2-tick delay going into this block here. So when that turns back on, that fires into this obsidian, this repeater takes that, and after 2 ticks fires into this block, obviously extending this piston, moving that block down like this. Now, for the time being, we're going to leave the triple piston extender because actually we can't do anything with it at the moment. We're going to work on the other 3 pistons, these 3 here. So what we need to do is place dust on top of this observer. See, that torch would be powering that dust if it was on. Have a repeater coming away from that dust on 1-tick delay, going into a block. Have a torch here. Now, normally I'd place a block here and a torch here, but if I place a block, you can see that piston is extended, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do, this is strange, okay? We're going to grab another piece of obsidian and place it here, and then place a piston going toward that piston. So that piston is trying with all its might to push, but it can't because this obsidian is here. If we remove that, of course, it would just extend, obviously moving this piston, breaking our build. So now we can place a torch on this side. So as that torch turns on, when this all kicks off, when it all extends, this dust turns on, powering this repeater, powering this block, obviously extending this piston, moving this piston up to here. That torch turns off, unpowering our piston, allowing this torch to turn on, which obviously powers this block here, which will extend our double piston extender, like so. You see that? Fairly straightforward-ish. But of course, we also want to extend this piston when these ones are extended. And we do that by placing another piston. This build is so expensive. Facing downward next to that torch, and then a torch here. And that's the only way we can really do it. So because that torch is turned off, this piston is off, which obviously allows this torch to be on, powering this obsidian, powering this sticky piston. Yeah, powering this sticky piston like that. Oh yeah, and this is completely up to you. If you want to, you can place another piece of obsidian here. You don't need it, but it does make the build a little bit quieter. It's completely up to you. So now when I leave it off, our triple piston extender will remain the same, of course, because we haven't done anything to it since a few seconds ago. And we won't have a full retraction yet on our double piston extender. But what we will have is our pistons going in line with each other, like this. Can you see? Those 2 in line, so we can power these 2 together in a minute. And then when these ones are retracted to here, we can power these 2 together. It just makes it so much easier. Now, you'd be pleased to know we are so close to finishing already, which is great. So what we need to do now is to retract these 2 pistons. So extend these 2 pistons, grabbing these 2, and retracting them down. Now we do that by firstly placing a piston here. No, not there. Here, underneath that block. So it's going to extend toward the front. Then have an observer coming away from that piston, so the dot toward the right of our build. A block here, covering the dot. A block here, and dust. And that's it. So flick the lever, and we should have those 2 pistons retracting. So how does this bit work, I hear you ask? Well, if you come over here, we can see. So after this repeater turns on, after 3 ticks, this observer detects it, fires, this observer detects that we're firing into this block, which obviously helps on the triple piston extender, but also it extends and retracts this piston very quickly. When that happens, this observer detects that, firing into this block, then this dust, and that dust is actually connecting also to that block, even though it looks like it's not, it actually is. So those 2 pistons get fired and then retracted. Like this. Cool. So basically, all we have to do now is to fire these 2 pistons. And we do that by placing a piston like this, an observer next to that piston, some dust, and a block. And that's it. So after that dust flashes very quickly because of those 2 repeaters pulsing into it, it's going to power this block, which obviously will extend and retract this piston. That observer detects it, powering into this dust. And even though this dust looks like it's going toward this piston exclusively, it's not. It's going in every direction, weirdly. So it's going to power this block, obviously above this piston. So this piston extends and retracts really quickly, moving this observer to here, meaning this piston is going to extend and retract, then moving it back, allowing this piston to extend and retract. And that's why we have a piston here. Because if we had a block, of course, that block would be above that torch, which would be powering this dust. And that would not do. What I'm trying to say is it now works. So we have the full extension. And there we are. That is the full retraction. Perfect. And of course, now we can cover up our redstone. Now, just before we finish, like I promised, I'll show you how to move the lever. And this is super simple. You want to move the lever, literally just remove the lever from where it is and have a repeater going toward that block. And it's even simpler than that. You don't even need to use a repeater. You can literally just use dust. This build is not fussed in the slightest. But I understand if you want to have a lever here, it could seem a little bit more tricky. So what we're going to do is place a block there, have our lever. Underneath that block, have a sticky piston facing downward. Then have a furnace or a chest or something like that. Then place a block here, one down and another. Remove the first two. In our furnace, place any old block you don't mind throwing away. I might as well just use the wood. Then have a comparator coming away from that. So when that furnace moves down, that comparator is going to turn on because it's going to detect there's an item in that furnace, which is going to power into a block. Have a block down here. That block will power into some dust, which will power into a block. Then have a block here, a repeater coming away from that block. See what I've done? Comparator, block, dust, block, repeater. Going, guess what? Into a block to the side, and dust. And that's it. So flick the lever. We have our extension. Flick the lever again. We have the retraction. And of course, if you wanted to, you could swap this for a button. It really doesn't matter, but of course you can't just do that. What you need to do is remove these two blocks here. Have a dropper facing upward. A dropper facing this way. Crouch and place a hopper going toward that bottom dropper. To make sure it is, like that. Come up to the top, crouch, place a comparator coming away from that top dropper, and then a block in that dropper. And that will work just the same. Beautiful. It's such a simple build. You see what I mean though? Like this build looks quite complicated. You know, you have a piston here going into obsidian. I mean, what does that mean? You might think. And you know, with this dust, I mean, oh, what does it all mean? But when you break it down, it's not that bad. Remember, a lot of redstone is just about logic and order. And that's pretty much it. And just before we finish, I just want to say one big thank you to Rogue Fox for giving me this challenge. I really did enjoy it. So thank you so much. And like I said, if you haven't checked him out already, what are you doing? Go into the description below and go give him a sub. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you did like this video or like this design, please give us a like. And if you really loved it, make sure you subscribe with that wonderful subscribe button for more awesome content. Anyway, I'll catch you guys next one and I'll see you later. Bye.